Go?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Lee. Oh, God, life on life's terms. Huh? Oh, 8 and 2. So, I woke up this morning with all these plans that involved electricity, and it went out. And so I didn't get to dry iron my hair or anything. And now it's dawning on me that my husband, who's currently on crutches, is going to have to go down on his ass from the second floor to the first because the chair's not going to be working. And then we got a call that my mother-in-law died. It wasn't unexpected. She was in hospice care. But I loved, we called her Barbara because she was from Boston. And then we gave her lots of shit about her horrible football team, and she'd say, "We have a team?" And I felt very connected to Barbara, and she was my husband's stepmother. His father married her long after the kids were out of the house, but she's the only mother-in-law I ever had. And it's so nice that your mom is sitting here. I can't even imagine what that's like. And, that's part of the gift that does not stop giving of alcoholism is, there was no connection in my home. And there's no part of this disease that hasn't informed my life, the choices I've made in it, every aspect. I am the daughter, the granddaughter, the great-granddaughter, and probably generations further back of alcoholics. My great-grandfather was named Jiggs O'Malley. Do I need to say anything else? He died of water on the brain. And I'm married to a sober alcoholic. I'm the mother of a practicing addict. And there's nothing. There's nothing in my life. And I come from the classic alcoholic / rageaholic home. My mom was the alcoholic, my dad was the rageaholic. And they find each other. And they form that, incredibly powerful dysfunctional bond. And I guess my word today, my subject is connection. And I think for me, a lot of it has to do with, I remember I took this course and there was what's the thing called when you get in a sweat lodge involved. And there was a Native American man who came and he taught this thing, and he was actually sober, but he walked into a room before he got sober and he saw on the blackboard, cunning, baffling, powerful. And he thought that they were talking about God. And I've thought about that. It was like 20 years ago, and that is kind of my connection with God is a challenging one for me. Because I grew up in this home, my mother was an atheist who called herself an agnostic. My dad was a Catholic on Sundays, and the rest of the time he was kind of a bastard. But I was a really religious little girl. I believed profoundly in God, and I not only said my prayers that I was supposed to, I knelt there on the side of my bed till my knees hurt and thought of other prayers, and I made shit up, and I sang songs, and man, I loved God. God was a thing, because it was something to clasp onto. And then when shit really went south, I had a little sister who was born Down syndrome, and back in 1961, which is just so hard to imagine, they looked at my mother and father and said, "Put her in a home, don't name her, pretend you never had her, don't hold her." And my mom said, "Fuck you very much, give me my baby, I'm going home." And my dad said, "Well, maybe we should do that." Because he didn't know. And that was kind of the beginning of the end. And it all went downhill. That's when the heavy drinking started. That's when the violence began. That's when, police were involved, and hospitals and institutions and craziness. And I was like, God, what the fuck? Where are you? And I was pissed. I was angry. I was hurt. I was betrayed. By the time I was 16, I was, the girl in the back of the, Catholic church smoking cigarettes with the other hoodlums. So when I have been in these 12-step rooms since 1982 in various seats, in various rooms, and I haven't left. And I've never done anything right. I've never done anything in the right order. I've been coming here for 11 years, and I'm just now doing my first fourth step. I got a sponsor this year for the first time. I tried, but I couldn't get one. But this is in my bones and my DNA. It's saturated, because when I walked in these rooms when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, which is well over half my life, I had no tools. I had no ability to connect. I went from being the Alanon who was the caretaker to becoming the problem, and I've spent so much time seesawing and living on the edge and, and feeling alone. And even when and I was that kid, we moved a lot. So I was a lot of, we lived 6 places, and I went to 9 schools, and I was always the new kid. But then I would go from being the new unpopular kid, and I would become the president of my student council. I would find out how to get to where the cool girls were. And they didn't always like me right away, but I'd make them laugh. I'd do something, I'd find my way in. And, this disease, because I was in a home where nobody came to our home, I couldn't bring people there. And if I did, it would be like a sociological experiment, I would bring kids home from school, and when we'd sit there for an hour or so, and then I'd say, it's not normal, right? It's weird. And they go, it's weird. Nobody wanted to spend the night at my house. And by the time I got to junior high, there were 3 of us girls who had the alcoholic moms. And Allison would tell her mom she was at my house, and Amy would tell hers that she was at Allison, and I'd say I was at Amy's. And the 3 of us would go sleep in the park, or we'd go, Friday and Saturday nights, we'd be in our cars, we didn't have them in junior high. I forget but it was like that was a way. It was about survival. It wasn't about thriving. It wasn't about connection. And, yesterday there was a conversation about resentments, and I've been thinking about it ever since. And, resentments, and I'm really quick to go to resentments, are a way to not connect. They're isolation. You isolate. And I am really attached to self-righteous anger. I find it very comforting and empowering. I feel empowered when I'm right. And being right in my home was like the fucking gold standard. And it was all. It was all about the masculine values. It was about competition, getting ahead, keeping score, logic, defeating your enemy, strategy, always never forgetting, always remembering, bringing up everything that was ever said in a fight, keeping track. My husband hates fighting with me because I will say back verbatim everything he just fucking said, And it wasn't until I walked in here that I had any clue about the feminine values. I didn't understand nurturing, forgiveness, letting go, connection, creativity, compassion, softness, gentleness. That was just like an alien fucking language to me. It was like you were being a pussy if you did that shit. And I have to say, it does serve me well. I would far rather be the woman who needs to learn how to contain her anger than the woman who can't access it. Because if I'm walking down the street, most guys are not going to fuck with me because they're going to get fucked back with. I'm that girl. And there's power in that. There's strength in that. And also growing up with the biggest fucking rageaholic on the planet. My dad would start yelling on Monday morning, he'd finish on Friday night, and then he'd begin again on Saturday. And he was 250 pounds, 6'4", and a beast. So it's like there's basically, if a guy tries to intimidate me with anger, it's like, bring it on. Go ahead, try, motherfucker. I can't be intimidated. I can't be cowed. And I'm grateful for that. And the things that used to be strengths or liabilities that get in the way, and it's, we had no boundaries in my home, none. As my husband said, in his family, they kind of know what each other does for a living. In my family, we know how each other smells, and fights took place. Fights were family events, and yelling and screaming, and my mom, just craziness, like my mom walking around for 12 hours on a broken leg. Like things that alcoholism and blackout drinking and all that stuff, there was no connection. It wasn't about, it was connection in a dark, dysfunctional way, but it wasn't about connection in terms of having love and acceptance and values. And, was that a beep?
Yeah, that was yours.
Huh?
That was time.
Total time?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, I missed them both. It's not very loud.
There's a lot of
Oh, okay. So I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful for the gifts of this program, the tools that I have gained, and the fact that, it's far more important for me right now to listen and learn than it is to share, and that's not where I come from. So thanks for letting me share.
And you look so sweet.
I'm still late. Boy, that took, that took me, when that first part where she was talking about we're sick as our secrets. Oh my God. I remember "you don't" was the beginning of, don't tell. That was the first 2 words of every sentence in my house. Don't tell your mother, but don't tell your father, but don't tell mom, but don't tell dad. It was all about secrets and lies. And I remember when I was somewhere with my 3 friends who we were spending the night out, we heard about this thing called Alanon. And I went to an Alanon meeting, and it was like a dry, crusty sponge getting water. And it was suddenly like, oh my God, I'm not alone. There are other people who have fucked up parents, and this is amazing. And it felt so good. And I just felt like this aliveness, like there was this huge aura of happiness around me. And I went home that night, and my mother and father called me into their room and said that I couldn't go back there because then somebody might think my mother was an alcoholic, and somebody would find out. And my dad was on a corporate ladder. And it was like I didn't have these words at the time, but inside it was, are you fucking kidding me? But that was it, and I never got to go back. And man, I just, the whole connection thing, I'll just go back, when I meditate, I have to do different things about God. And sometimes lately, God has been all of our ascended higher consciousnesses. I just imagine, I hear that. All the people in the world, their higher selves are ascended, and that's what God is. And I'm like, okay, I get that. It's like, it's good for me to think of God as they sometimes. It's not it, it's not he, it's not she, it's they. And then it's like, right now I'm in a phase where it's a connection to source. I just think of God as source. It's like taking my cell phone and plugging in. I have to plug me into source. Kind of the same way, if I don't walk 35 to 40 miles a week, I'm a wreck. I have to get out and walk every day, 4, 5, 6 miles. And if I don't, if I don't eat this, and if I don't have my morning caffeine, and it's like, I want to have, and a lot of times I do have, that same relationship to connecting to source. Like, okay, plug yourself in. You can take 20 minutes and just be there and see what comes up or down or in or out. And I'm grateful. I'm like, my number one sensation in life is gratitude. Thanks for letting me share.